The more that I explore the inner dimension of faith and the inner dimension of perceiving ontological truths, the more that I am seeing that most people don't even see themselves at all. They look at themselves and other people look at them quite often. But I now understand why people are seen very rarely, but they're looked at very often. And it's because a lot of these people out here, I see them as phenomenon in our experience. It's just like a video game, like playing Mario Kart, right? Playing Mario Kart, you have, maybe you're playing as Mario or Yoshi or whatever, and then there's Bowser and Wario and all those other negative characters that you're playing against, and you're being looked at by these characters in the game. But are you being seen by them? Well, there's not really a them behind it, right? It's just they're a phenomenon in the experience of the game. So what exactly does that mean about people sometimes? Because people can be like this very much. A lot of people have heard the term NPC, non-player character. Well, or you could say non-player consciousness. But the non-player character or consciousness that are very much so a part of this game of life that we're playing, because it's all a joke, man. It's all a joke, but it's not really a joke as in it's nihilistic, because I think that many people will see my inner exploration of faith and the philosophy of ontology as well as a form of existential nihilism, and that's not the way that I see it at all. But I'm aware that the more I explore these things, the more that people will start to look this way, because the way that I see it is that humans are not fallen. And I see grace found through awareness. And I see identity as a sovereign participant, that you are a sovereign participant in the creative world that we live in. But I know that a lot of people will see themselves as a servant in their identity. They want to be seen as a servant, but the thing is that you're a servant, yes, and I think that your purpose to serve is important, but I don't think that serving is necessarily the right term. I don't think serving is the right phrasing. And the reason behind this is because the moment that you think that you're a servant, the moment you believe that, you've dedicated your cognitive faculties to someone else. Now, I don't really know if I believe in submission anymore either. I don't know if that's really the case. I think that you choose to believe in submission. And especially in relationship dynamics, I don't think women are supposed to be submissive per se anymore. I used to believe this, but now I'm questioning even that, where I don't think it's a question of submissiveness, but reciprocity. And the more reciprocal a woman is, the more she wants to give you, the more genuine desire she feels for you. And I think that submission is the wrong term to use here. Now, I can totally see why it's in, submission to the mission of the man. But what that really is that she understands that you as a man are the leader in the relationship. And that doesn't mean that she has to submit to you. It means that she wants to reciprocate your interests. And I think that that's maybe a key distinction in the insight there. But I know that a lot of men will feel like they're not even looked at by women, and rarely women ever see you. And this is also the case for women. Women get looked at, well, it's the same case but different perspective. Women get looked at a lot by men, but are they ever really seen? I mean, I think that it's pretty sad that the women in our society feel as though they have to stoop so low to sell their love and their bodies, the whatever you want to call it, the meat suit, in order to feel like they're being seen in their soul on the inside. And yet at the same time, that's never going to change, right? It's never going to change. It's just like someone who's overeating. And I know this because I was an overeater. I was very gluttonous. You know, the reason that I overate psychologically was that I wanted to fulfill that feeling of emptiness inside my soul. Like I couldn't ever really get fulfilled with anybody. And my relationships were always very empty. And I didn't know why. I didn't know why. I really, at one point, years and years ago, because I was almost 200 pounds at 5'6", and so I was, you know, I was a big boy, and I was a hefty boy, and I was someone that didn't understand how I could be healthy in this world. Like I genuinely didn't know if being healthy was even an option in the world that we live in, because the world that we live in was so, and is so, degenerate and disgusting and filthy on a soul level. And the thing is that people always try to, at least it seemed like, people always tried to dominate myself, or they tried to just take what they could and leave. You know, it was very much so like Gollum or Sauron in regard to the archetypes of these characters. And I've been thinking about this because I've been making a Lord of the Rings class. And so I've been, you know, putting together the archetypes and what the narrative of the Lord of the Rings really means on a psychological level. And, you know, Gollum always talking about my precious, my precious. Well, what is Gollum? Well, he's consumed by desire. He's consumed and possessed by these things, and he doesn't even have a self anymore, to the point in which he develops this, you know, multi-personality disorder, because the desire is just taking over his psyche. Whereas Sauron, he has the eye, right? Like it's the eye, and he watches everything. He looks at everything. Sauron looks at everything, but does he really see anyone? No, he doesn't see anyone. And you can look at that phrasing in two different kinds of ways. So number one is he doesn't see anyone, as in he does not see anyone. He sees objects in his perspective that he wants to dominate. He doesn't see people as autonomous or phenomenon. Like, just because you see someone as a non-player character or consciousness doesn't mean that you recognize that they're still their own person to some degree. Like, they're still not you, right? They're you, but they're not you. They're more like a mirror of what your past timeline could be like. Like, you might as well be meeting someone from another life. I'm not saying that this is the case. I'm just saying that you might as well be speaking to another version of you in a past life just by interacting with someone. And sometimes these people might be older than you, and they might be non-player characters or consciousness. And again, it's a phenomenon. They're just a phenomenon in your experience. It doesn't prove that, you know, really anything about anything. It just means that, well, the way that you're experiencing certain things is going to be dependent upon your perception of them. And if you perceive the world and the people in it like Sauron does, well, then you're going to be you're going to just be trying to dominate through your will. And it's like in Batman as well. For the Batman Begins, when Liam Neeson's character is like, he's like, what does he say? Thinking is nothing, but will is everything. Something like that. It's when they're fighting on the ice, And you'll notice that a lot of people who are antagonists, let's say, always strive to use their will above all else. However, they're using their will not for the force of making the well-being of themselves more whole. They're using it to, try to control people. And you can do that. Like, you can use your will to control people, but that doesn't really make it right. And I don't really see right and wrong anymore. Or maybe the best way to phrase that is, I don't look at right and wrong anymore. I see something that is happening and something that is not happening. And I'm not saying that I'm not moral or that I don't have a sense of morality. What I'm saying is that we determine our morals based off of what we perceive the truth to be. So if you perceive the truth of the Quran to be a certain way, you're going to have morals of the Quran. If you perceive the truth to be through a lens of Christianity, then you're going to have the lens of Christianity. Like, it's going to be based on your perception of the truth is going to be determining your values and your principles. So it's not necessarily that one's more right than the other, or one's more wrong than the other. It's just that, well, if you embody these things, what's going to be the result? And it's because now I see the existence as something to operate from an inward place of timelessness. And this is why I think humans are not fallen. I think we're just limited, but evolving and renewing constantly. Like the Bible does talk about renewing in your own mind. I think we're always renewing our own mind. At least that's the healthy, proper way to be. Because if you embody that value of the Bible, your life just continues to get better. That's just the way that it is. So it's about what can you embody through the teachings. And I think that the perception of people who perceive themselves to be just utterly sinful and disgusting, and they have to suffer, it's very, sometimes I see it as masochistic suffering, and they're glorifying this suffering. However, the key insight here is that consciousness cannot really be in awareness without suffering. I mean, that's what we learned from the story of Adam and Eve, right? Adam and Eve they were chilling. They were just chilling in paradise. They didn't know anything from anything. They just did what they really wanted. But then all of a sudden, when they knew about good and evil, when they knew about suffering, all of a sudden, that's when they realized, oh, snap, I'm self-aware. So it's the recognition of good and evil. It's like good and evil are basically ways that you, like, knowing about good and evil is how you destroy your purity. That's what we can learn from the story of Adam and Eve as well. And it's not to say that, good and evil is a destruction of purity per se, but it's that to reclaim that purity, you have to live outside of good and evil. If you truly want to reclaim it, try and consider living outside of good and evil. Because look, I'm not here to tell people the right and wrong answers. I realize that. And I'm here to provide a structure in which people can explore. And that's exactly what I'm doing with the work that I'm doing going forward, is I'm providing a structure so that people can explore freely and safely without feeling judged. Because that's ultimately the biggest thing that a lot of these religionists and dogmatics and all the red pill people as well, like, we're pretty much encompassing a lot of different types of ideals and ideologues in here, rather. Because the red pill, take the red pill, like, it has its place. Like, the red pill does have its place, but take it to its logical end and see how many people embracing the red pill that just hate women. Just hate them. Now look, I'm not saying that women are not disgraceful in our day and age, but I love the spirit of the eternal feminine. I love that. I think it's very beautiful. But I also recognize that that in of itself is a concept. So it's not that I love the concept, it's that in my relationship to the perception of that form of consciousness, I enjoy it. It's just like in my relationship to God, I enjoy that relationship. I enjoy learning, and I think that God is so cool that you can look at God from different perspectives. Not even look at God. Let's make that differentiation in the semantics here. You can see God from different perspectives, and it can all be true in some way. And you can also look at God from different perspectives, and it can be wrong. So are you seeing God, or are you just looking at God? Are you looking at God and the God image, or are you just, are you seeing God in the God image, or are you not just, just are you not? Like there's no, it is black and white to some degree, and you're either with God or you're not. But it's up to you to decide that in your relationship to Him. Nobody else can really determine, like confessing your sins to a priest or whatever. That's just weird to me now. I don't, because the thing is that you're assuming that as a human being you're fallen, and that you have to serve your way to heaven. And it's like, well, yes, but no. Like, did Adam and Eve have to serve their way to heaven, even though they were in paradise, so to speak, right? And you can get into all kinds of theological arguments here. But again, this is why I'm exploring the ontology and the inner works and the inner dimensions of faith and belief and all these things, because I don't believe anymore. I don't believe. I don't need to. I don't need to believe, because I can either verify something or I don't. And a lot of people might think that that's reductionist. Well, it's like, well, then, it's like the flat earth theories, right? Like I've been doing a lot of research into the flat earth theories and all that. And I'm not saying I'm a flat earther, but, trying to prove that the earth is like a globe, that's pretty difficult. Like it's pretty difficult to prove that. Whereas with the flat earthers, how do you verify there's a flat earth? Oh, go look outside. That is like, just use your empirical data. And, that's a good start. But you can't do that. You can't do that with the globe theory. So it's just very interesting how we can look at certain things and yet see very little sometimes. And the same thing goes for our relationships with people. I mean, this is what happens with narcissists as well, right? With narcissists, they'll see nothing. They'll look at you a lot, but they'll see nothing. And that can be very, it can be very sharp as an analysis and a form of recognition to that. But I hope that this message was useful and insightful for you. I hope everybody stays blessed. Thank you for sharing this divine timing with me. Peace. Until next time.